Okay, so we're now live, we're recording, and I'll just say it again, welcome very much to the NLP Business Circle. What I wanted to do is I wanted to run through a presentation we've covered this on the training, but people sometimes don't understand the power of this particular technique. This, for me, is one of the most powerful ways that you can teach to your clients to help them teach people to take personal responsibility. And I wanted to share with you in this how it's asking questions. It's two specific questions we ask. I've added some extra to this. And the reason I've added some extra to this is because I started to see what was happening when people actually didn't respond well to the questions. But I'm sure you'll understand, we'll be able to take you through this. Anything you're not sure about, let's see, Rita, but how exactly doing the power of NLP that we value to new companies or clients? Okay, Rita, I'll get that later. What we'll do is we'll go through the presentation first. We can get any questions and answers you require for the presentation, and then I'll get back to that question you've asked us just now. So I'll just take a wee note of that, Rita. Fantastic. Fabulous. Fabulous. Rita, well, you see, Rita just written so she doesn't forget. Okay, moving mindsets from problems to solutions. Let's just go through this. The benefits of a solution mindset is the ability to deal with challenges effectively. That can make the difference between someone being highly engaged and satisfied employee and an employee seeking a job. So it's well known, there's lots of research out there that if people feel totally engaged, then they tend to stay with companies longer, they become satisfied, they feel valued, and they feel appreciated. So companies don't have to keep going back and re-employing people. So the aim of this exercise is to learn to help people shift from a problem focus to a solution focused mindset, and for them to take ownership of their own engagement and help them to see adversity in a positive light. As you know, you all work with companies, you all work in business, and one of the worst things that can happen in business is the negative virus, the negativity virus, where we all have challenges. There's no business now that's not going through change. Change is now part of our day-to-day work. So it's helping people actually turn around and see these challenges and look for ways to resolve this in a positive light. So we've got our inside world and our outside world. The inside world, as you know, is how we think about things, what we believe about the situations, it's our values, it's everything that's going inside our own heads. And we have the outside world. Now, in business, the processes, procedures, targets, new ways of doing things are all in the outside world. So you cannot change that. The only thing that you can change is you can change how you respond to that. So one of the first things I always bring in when I'm teaching this to people is I bring in the whole thing about the inside and outside world. Because people sometimes do, this comes into very much the cause effect if we're talking about meta modeling. Someone or something makes me feel. So what's happening is that people, there'll be a change happening, there'll be a problem, there'll be a situation, and people are responding to that. They're having an emotional response to that. So one of the first places to start when you're doing this is really help people understand the difference between the inside and outside worlds. So focusing on problems creates low energy. It's as simple as that. When people are focused on problems, their energy is low, their motivation is low, and their ability to get things done becomes much less. They can feel overwhelmed. Again, one of the things you can listen out for as NLP professionals is generalization. If someone's starting to do a lot of generalizing, what that means is that they could be overwhelmed. So it's listening out, it's watching for the energy, and it's watching how people are reacting to what they perceive as problems. Focusing on solutions creates high energy because it creates movement. It creates ways to do things. It creates choice. And as you know, the whole thing about what we do with NLP is just help people have more choice. So, what does problem mean? Basically, a problem is a matter or situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with or overcome. But the interesting thing is the word problem. If you think about it, can you go to www.problem and buy 10 kilos of problem? No, you can't. So it's a nominalization. And when I looked up in the dictionary, I looked up for different words different words to describe problems. And if you go through all these different words, you can see a complication is, so if someone's saying to themselves, this is a complication, compared to this is giving me grief, or it's a predicament, it's a headache, it's a scrape, it's a pickle, it's a disagreement. So all these different words are describing what can come under the general term of problem. But depending on what specifically the situation is, people can have lots of different responses. So one of the ways that we work with this is to actually help someone linguistically just move from thinking about the problem to thinking about the solution. So the easiest way to do this, and if you've got a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you just now, you can write this down. If not, just think of it. Just think of it in your head. So choose a problem that you have, something that's not been resolved yet. Ask yourself, why is this a problem? And then write down or think of at least 3 reasons as to why it's a problem. And your reasons will start with because. So while you're doing this, just a wee cup of tea. And sip of my tea. So once you've got at least 3 things, if you can just put yes in the answer box. So it's writing down at least 3 reasons as to why it's a problem. If you only get 1, you can ask yourself, and what else? Or if there is only 1, maybe it's not that big a problem. So just thinking of at least 3 reasons as to why this is a problem. And as soon as you've got something, just put yes in the chat box. Okay, thanks Laura. Laura's typing. Yeah. Magdalena. Yeah. Rita. Okay. So we move on to the first. So that is this is the very specific question. So you ask why. Thanks, Rita. Why is this a problem? So step 2 to this is ask the person to think of the same situation, and then you can ask, what has to happen to change this situation? So what has to happen to change the situation? And ask them to think about at least 5 possible solutions. Now, this is encouraging creativity. It's encouraging people to really start to think of possible solutions. And the power of this, I also sometimes say, what needs to happen to change this situation? The one question you do not ask is, what do you need to do? When you ask what has to happen to change the situation, what needs to happen to change the situation, what you're doing is you're opening up choices and you're disassociating the person you're talking to from the solution. They might start thinking of what they can do, but there may be other ways to resolve this that don't involve themselves. And you get that person to come up with at least 5 possible options. And once you've got that, you're able to then say to someone, is it correct for me to say that you have more possible solutions than you have reasons for this being a problem? So when we're asking this particular phrase, there's 2 things are happening. We have, it's a bit of a reframe, there's a bit of a reframe there, but we have linguistically changed the word problem into solution. So, sorry, into situation. So we've changed the word problem into the word situation. Just by making that tiny shift, you help someone emotionally disconnect with whatever emotions they were feeling when thinking about it as a problem. Now, when you're working with people with this, it's really, really important that you keep your state neutral and fun. Because, and I don't mean fun making fun of someone, I just mean neutral, light, curious. Because if someone comes to you and says, I've got a problem, and you go, so what is that problem? You've locked them into that problem. You have actually anchored them into that problem state. Rather than if someone goes, I've got a problem, you go, okay, right. So let's have a wee look and see what needs to happen to change that situation. Can you see even the way I used my voice tone, I used my body posture was completely different the second time, rather than collapsing into, oh, how are we going to solve this? Because just dropping your voice tone to match someone's voice tone, just dropping your physiology to match someone's physiology, just locks them in. So it's remembering, it's keeping neutral, it's keeping curious, it's keeping light, and it's keeping, you're actually presupposing that that person will be able to get a solution to this, and it's just a situation. And it's incredible. I have used this for about 25 years, and it's incredible how quickly people start coming up with their solutions. Okay, so this is the extra bit that I haven't actually shared with you before, because I know some of you, we covered that last part on the training, but again, sometimes you may have deleted it or you may not have realised the importance of it. When you're asking someone to create a mindset of so being able to come up with solutions, you're actually helping them to become creative. Now, this is a phenomenal exercise to do with someone, and I would recommend you do this with your clients. So if you're working one-to-one with someone, you would do this with someone, just to help them appreciate the extra bit that's got to be done here. So you get A. So say, for example, you're A, and your client is B. So you take the first question before, okay, so why is this a problem? So you ask them, why is this a problem? And you get them to come up with 3 reasons as to why it's a problem. And then you say to B, your client, so what has to happen? What needs to happen? And then as they start coming up, now this is only when you're teaching leaders to use this. This is when you're teaching other people to use this technique. This is what you do. You then dismiss every suggestion that B makes. No, that won't work. Yeah, do you really think about that? Yeah, is that? And watch how quickly they start to lock down. Because as a manager, you've got to be able to be in a state that encourages creativity by actually letting someone be creative. Because if you're not creative, if you're not letting that person be creative, they're going to start thinking, what's the point of this? There's absolutely no point of this. Okay, so then what I bring in, I teach people about the eye access cues. So visual, as you know, is eyes going up in visual mode, and you respond with visual words. And keep it really simple. So which of these solutions do you see as the best option? And people do not have to have had NLP training to learn these techniques. They're really simple and really powerful. And then auditory. So if their eyes are going side to side, so the auditory mode is side to side, you then respond to them using auditory words. So which solution sounds the right one for you? Or how do you want to discuss that? Then we've got the feeling mode. And again, responding with feeling or kinesthetic words. Which solution feels like the best option to you? And then you go through the exercise again. You then ask the person that you're teaching to use this technique, because this is what the NLP Circle is all about. This is for us being able to get these techniques out to people so they're using them and getting more choices and making a difference. I know with yourself, Laura, you've got a whole team that you can teach this to. I know, Rita, you've got your clients that you can teach this to. So you might be working with some clients that are leaders and they're developing other people. Magdalena, I know that you work with loads of people as well. So again, it's actually helping people to use these techniques, but use them well. So the second part, you then asked B, okay, come up with, so what needs to happen? What has to happen? And watch the I access cues. And start matching your language. And also, just watch and let them do the transderivational search. Now, you know what the transderivational search? The transderivational search is when someone asks a question and then someone does this. The eyes are moving as they're searching for the answer. Because asking what has to happen, what needs to happen, they've got to think about that. It can't be answered flippantly. So wait until someone has finished their transderivational search. And if you're seeing the eyes moving in different ways, maybe even start to notice in what order they're moving. So if the eyes are going up first, you might want to bring in the visuals. So once they're finished, say, so how could you see that? And then if they look down, you can say, so how do you see that working and how will it feel to you? Simple, 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 but incredibly powerful techniques. And then, I've missed a bit there. The first one was I'll go back there. My apologies. First one was, why is this a problem? And watch what's happening with their eyes. When it's a problem, you're not actually asking them to come out with stuff. You're just watching how they're grabbing that problem. So when you're encouraging solutions, the first thing you ask is, so why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? And then watch. Just really watch their eyes, because you can start to see what's happening with the eyes, and also watch their state. Watch what they're doing in their physiology. Listen to their voice tone. And you'll start to hear how they start feeling about that particular problem. And then you go back to the second question, what needs to happen to resolve the situation? What needs to happen to sort this out? What has to happen to get this sorted? There's all sorts of different ways you can say it, but it's got to be what has to happen or what needs to happen, never what do you need to do. So when the person is coming up with the answers to their solution, encourage them. Fantastic. Well done. Yeah. What else? And what else? And what else? And what else? Because once you're really working with someone, they might not even stop at 5 solutions. They might come up with even more than that. And you'll start to see, again, the transderivational search as they start to look at all the choices that are coming in. And then you can ask them, so what do you think are the most realistic solutions? So by asking, what do you think are the most realistic solutions, you've flipped the brain into thinking of not just one solution, but starting to think of realistic solutions. How can you're getting them to think about actually implementing this, acting on it, taking the action. And then check to see, but when you're teaching someone, get them to notice the difference of how it feels. Completely different when someone actually is working with you. So, just to recap, the benefits of using this exercise are: encourages people to think about solutions. It helps develop creativity. It encourages personal responsibility. It allows people to take ownership for their own engagement. It helps grow their confidence and helps people to see adversity in a positive light. Now, I'm going to add to this because I have taught this to hundreds of business leaders. And what I get back from a lot of these people is they say, well, what starts to happen is the culture in the business starts to change. Because you only have to do this a few times, one or two times with someone, to realise that you're sending out a signal if you're a coach, you're sending out a signal if you're a manager or a business leader, that you want people to come to you with solutions, not with problems. And as long as you can click in and help someone feel that there's no answer is stupid, no answer is silly. All you're looking at is all the possible ways that you could get this situation resolved. People will start to do it all by themselves. And more importantly, especially if you're a senior manager and you have team leaders below you, if you teach this or when you teach this to your team leaders then start to cascade out the culture that encourages people to actually come up. So that, and lots of times I've found people will come up and say, actually, I've got this situation. And I was thinking, so they may be coming to you to help choose the best of a couple of solutions, which is completely different to saying, you know, I've got a problem. So let's have some comments. Let me have some comments, a little bit of feedback, and anything that you need questioned about, any questions you need answered. Just type something in the chat box so I know you're still here. Thank you. Okay, so I want you to think, Madalena, where are you going to use this? Okay, so you use it from tomorrow. And I would, first of all, Laura, can I teach this to managers to use with your juniors? Of course you can. Right, first of all, I'll go on to Madalena first. Madalena, she's going to use this from tomorrow with her team. And Laura's asked the question, can I teach this to managers to use with their juniors? Yes. Now, when you're teaching this to managers, you actually go through this process. You do the A and B. You let the manager experience what it's like to have everything just chucked away. What I'll do, I'll actually put this presentation up on the NLP Business Circle. Magdalena, are you on the NLP Business Circle Facebook page? I know you've been invited on there, but I'll put the presentation up just for about a week so you can actually see this presentation. But I would definitely go and help your team, your managers experience Laura. Help them experience how horrible it feels when you're asking someone to come up with solutions and you just bat them away. So this is why I wanted to show you this way, because it's really important that someone understands that the power of this is actually allowing someone to be creative. And then you can teach the eye access cues, and you can teach just matching the language to the eye access cues. Okay, Rita, how do you show clients how to use the visual, auditory, and feeling language? You can do exactly. You can. You're saying, how do you show clients? So I would get a visual. I would actually, you can take a screen share of this. In fact, because there's 3 of you here, let me just send you I will send you the presentation. I'll send you this presentation. I tend to print out the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I show people, I actually hand it and I show people and show them when the eyes are going up, and the eyes are going side to side, or the eyes are going down, and then ask them to think about the language. What sort of visual language would they use? What auditory language do they use? And what kinesthetic language do they use? Okay, so that answers your question, Rita, yeah? Right, Rita, is it easier for us to understand but not for new clients? It's, you know about eye access cues, but once upon a time you didn't know about eye access cues. And what I teach people about eye access cues is very simple. I just do this. I will have, if I'm working with clients, I always like to have a visual as well, but I will ask them maybe to talk about their holiday. And I'll ask them to actually describe, imagine seeing yourself in holiday and describe how it is and point out when their eyes are going up and saying, is it visual? Ask them to feel about something, because if you ask them, so how did you feel the last time? Last time you did a really good job, how did that feel? And get them to put their eyes down. Or listen to the last piece of music that you absolutely loved. So actually get them to ask questions that will allow someone to have their eyes go up, down, or side to side with the auditory. Okay, just because you know this, you did learn it at one point, and that's why I use examples. Should I do the exercise first? I don't understand what you've put. Should I do the exercise first of feelings? I don't understand that, Rita. Could you just describe a wee bit more? And I'll come back to you in a moment, Magdalena, because that's an interesting statement. Interesting question you've asked. Okay, while I'm waiting for Rita just to type that, oh, sorry, yes, of auditory, visual, and feeling language. You don't know where you're going to start. You will start with what your client is leading you with. Now, tell me if I'm on the right track, Rita. If someone's talking to you and they're doing a lot of this, and they're in kinesthetic language, they're using lots of kinesthetic language, you will start with demonstrating to them about kinesthetic language. If someone's doing a lot of this and looking up and using lots of visual language, that's where you will start, because they're already doing it. It's much easier to bring people's attention to something they're doing rather than get them to think about something they're not doing. Has that answered your question? That's for Rita. Okay, while I'm waiting for Rita to get back, Magdalena, you asked an interesting question. You said about sustainable. You said here, is this a sustainable solution? You know what I'm going to say? I don't know. But what I will say is the moment you bring choice to someone, they've got a choice, whether they do it that way or whether they come with problems. There'll be some people who will always default with problems first. They will always come to you with problems first. But sometimes people have to be given permission to come up with solutions. And the more you can conversationally encourage the people you're working with. In other words, the more people come to you and your default is, rather than going, so tell me about the solution, tell me about the problem, your default is, okay, so what has to happen to resolve this? Or, okay, what needs to happen to sort this out? So the more you default to that, the more people will get used to that's your style. And you know that people tend to naturally match other people's style. So for some reason, someone who keeps coming with problems, when they talk to you, they're not having that problem absolutely verified every time talking about problems. So it's all practice, it's trial and error.